Sign the papers, Natalie. It's over.
Over? I just gave birth to your son, and this is what you brought me?
His voice was cold, sharp as a blade. I clutched my newborn tighter, my body still shattered from birth. Over? I had just given life to his son, and now he was tearing our family apart. That night in the hospital wasn't just the end of a marriage, it was the beginning of a battle I never saw coming. I'm Natalie, a woman who once believed in forever love. 6 years of treatments, 6 years of hope, and I thought the day I gave birth would be the happiest moment of my life. But the moment I held my son, the man I called my husband threw divorce papers in my face and said, "Sign them. It's over." That night in the hospital changed my life forever. Before I share the rest of my story, let me know where you're watching from in the comments. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you've ever had to rise from heartbreak. Trust me, you'll want to hear what happens next. The snow fell silently outside Boston General Hospital as I held my newborn son for the first time. His tiny fingers wrapped around mine, and I thought my heart might burst from joy. 6 years of trying, of monthly disappointments, of hormone shots that left me crying in bathroom stalls. All of it led to this perfect moment. Then Ethan walked in. His Armani suit was pristine, not a snowflake on it. Strange, I thought, considering the blizzard outside. He stood by the door, hands in his pockets, looking at everything in the room except us. "We need to talk," he said. I smiled, exhausted but happy. "Come meet your son." He didn't move. "I can't do this anymore, Natalie." The heart monitor beeped steadily beside me. The antiseptic smell grew stronger, sharper. My C-section incision throbbed, but that pain was nothing compared to what came next. "I want a divorce. Today." I laughed. Actually laughed, because surely this was some twisted joke. Post-delivery hormones making me hear things, but his face remained stone. "I can't live a lie anymore," he continued, each word precise, rehearsed. "I'm in love with someone else." The baby stirred against my chest. I pulled him closer as if I could shield him from his father's words. "You're stressed," I whispered. "The baby, the hospital bills. My mother will come for him tomorrow." He turned to leave. "I'll have the papers sent over." "Ethan!" My voice cracked. "You can't just... We just had a baby. Our baby!" He paused at the door, his back to us. "I know, I'm sorry." And then he was gone. The snow kept falling. The machines kept beeping. My son kept breathing his tiny, perfect breaths. But my world had shattered into pieces so small I didn't know if I'd ever find them all again. A nurse came in, saw my face, and quietly closed the door. I didn't cry. I couldn't. I just held my baby and stared at the spot where his father had stood, wondering how a heart could keep beating when it was this broken. 3 days later, I came home to our Beacon Hill townhouse, the one I'd spent 2 years designing, every crown molding and window placement chosen with love. Helen, my mother-in-law, drove us in silence. She helped me inside but wouldn't meet my eyes. The house felt wrong immediately. A cashmere coat hung on the entry chair, not mine. The air smelled of jasmine perfume, not mine. I was settling the baby in his nursery when I heard her voice downstairs. "Is she back yet?" My legs trembled as I descended the stairs, one hand gripping the rail, the other pressed against my incision. In my living room, on my sofa, sat a woman with perfect auburn hair and a Hermes bag. "You must be Natalie." She stood, extending a manicured hand. "I'm Sienna Cole." I didn't take her hand. Couldn't. "I wanted to meet you properly," she continued, sitting back down as if she owned the place. "Clear the air, you know?" Helen stood frozen by the kitchen doorway, her face pale. "Get out of my house." My voice was barely a whisper. Sienna's smile was patient, practiced. "I'm not stealing anything, Natalie. He was never really yours." The room spun. I gripped the back of a chair, one I'd picked out on our second anniversary. "I'm pregnant," she added, smoothing her dress over her still flat stomach. 8 weeks along. Ethan's thrilled. He says he'll be a better father this time. This time. As if our son upstairs was just a practice run. Helen finally moved, her voice sharp. "That's enough, Sienna." "I'm just being honest." Sienna collected her bag. Woman to woman. She left through my front door like she'd done it 100 times before. Maybe she had. I sank onto the sofa, in the spot still warm from her body. Helen sat beside me, not touching, just present. "How long?" I asked. "I don't know," she whispered. "I swear I didn't know." Upstairs, the baby cried. My body moved on autopilot, up the stairs to his room, lifting him despite the searing pain. I'd feed him, change him, rock him. I'd do it all alone, because that's what mothers do. Even when their world is ending, they show up. The infection hit hard 5 days later. My body burned with fever while my breasts ached, unable to produce enough milk. The baby cried constantly, and I cried with him, both of us failing at this basic dance of survival. Helen stayed. I wanted to hate her for it, for choosing to witness my humiliation, but I needed the help too desperately to refuse. On the 7th night, Sienna returned. I was slumped in the nursery rocker, the baby finally quiet against my chest, when she appeared in the doorway. She placed an envelope on the dresser. $10,000, she said softly. Sign the divorce papers. Take the money and disappear. You deserve peace. Helen materialized behind her like an avenging angel. She snatched the envelope and threw it, bills scattering across the nursery floor. You think life is a transaction? Helen's voice shook with rage. You think you can buy your way out of this mess? Sienna stepped back, genuinely startled. I'm trying to help. Get out. Helen pointed to the stairs. And don't come back to this house. After Sienna left, Helen knelt to gather the scattered money. I watched her aging hands shake as she placed each bill back in the envelope. Keep it, I said. Natalie, I'm going to need it. She set the envelope on the dresser and left without a word. I stared at it for a long time. This insulting sum that was supposed to buy my silence, my absence, my erasure. Later that night, I opened my laptop for the first time since the hospital. An unfinished design stared back at me. A small apartment complex for single mothers, with built-in childcare spaces and communal areas for support. I'd drawn it months ago, a dream project no developer would fund. My fingers hovered over the keyboard. The baby slept in his bassinet beside me, making tiny sounds of contentment. Outside, Boston glittered with promise or mockery. I couldn't tell which anymore. I saved the file under a new name, Phoenix Rising. Then I opened my email and started typing. Dear Chloe, I need your help. Because if I was going to disappear, it wouldn't be on their terms. I'd vanish into something better, stronger, something entirely mine. Chloe's response came at 3 a.m. Send me your designs. I might have a client. My best friend since college, now a successful lawyer, had connections everywhere. While I'd been playing house, she'd been building an empire. Her text was a lifeline I grabbed with both hands. I spent the next week working through pain and exhaustion, redrawing plans between feedings, sketching while the baby napped on my chest. My laptop became my salvation, each line drawn pulling me further from despair. The breakthrough came unexpectedly. A boutique coffee chain wanted to rebrand, needed someone who understood spaces that nurture. Chloe had shown them my single mother housing concept. They love your vision, she said over the phone. 5,000 advance, 15 more on completion. Real money, real work, real hope. I was deep in floor plans when Ethan returned. No warning, just the sound of his key in the lock at midnight. Rain drummed against the windows as he stood in my makeshift office, water dripping from his coat onto hardwood floors he'd insisted on importing from Italy. You need to sign these. He dropped a manila folder on my desk, covering my drawings. Tonight. I opened it slowly, scanning the legalese until I found the buried mine, full custody to him. No. Natalie, be reasonable. You can't raise a child alone. You have no income, no. I said no. He leaned over me, his cologne, once intoxicating, now nauseating, filling the space. Sign it, or I'll make sure you regret it. I know judges. I know. Get out. This is my house. I stood, my body screaming in protest, and looked him in the eye. Then I'll leave, but you'll never get my son. Over my dead body. Something shifted in his face. Surprise, maybe. That the woman who'd spent 6 years deferring to his wants had found her spine in the wreckage he'd created. You have 1 week, he said finally. Then I file for abandonment. After he left, I sat in the dark, rain blurring the city lights. 1 week. I pulled up apartment listings, filtering for the cheapest options in South Boston. The baby woke, crying. I lifted him, whispering promises into his tiny ear. We're leaving, sweet boy. Somewhere he can't touch us. My phone buzzed. Chloe. Client loves the initial sketches, wants to meet Monday. You've got this. I had 4 days to disappear and rebuild. It would have to be enough. 3 weeks post-surgery, I loaded our life into 2 suitcases and a diaper bag. Every movement pulled at my incision, but adrenaline numbed the worst of it. The baby slept in his carrier, blissfully unaware that we were becoming refugees from our own life. The taxi idled outside, exhaust mixing with falling snow. I took one last look at the brownstone, At the window boxes I'd planted with Helen, at the door I'd painted sage green despite Ethan calling it too bold. "Where to?" the driver asked. I gave him the address of a studio in Southie. So far from Beacon Hill, it might as well be another planet. As we drove, Boston transformed outside the foggy windows, mansions giving way to triple-deckers, boutiques replaced by bodegas. "We start here," I whispered to my sleeping son as the taxi stopped outside a weathered building. "We start small, but we start." The studio was 400 square feet of water-stained walls and creaking floors. The radiator clanged like a ghost in chains. But it was month to month, and the landlord didn't ask questions when I paid in cash, Sienna's cash. Chloe arrived an hour later with supplies: formula, diapers, a space heater, and a folding table for my laptop. "It's temporary," she said, surveying the space with lawyer's eyes. "Everything's temporary." I set up the baby's portable crib by the window. "That's what I'm learning." She pulled out a lease agreement. "I'm renting this as a satellite office, officially. You're my design consultant, working on site. Helps with the custody issue. You're employed, housed, stable." I stared at the papers, then at her. "Chloe, don't cry. You'll set me off," and I wore my good mascara. That night, after Chloe left, I sat on the floor with the baby, both of us crying. But for the first time since the hospital, they weren't just tears of despair. They were tears of release, of grief for the life I'd lost and tentative joy for the one I might build. I'd left everything. The house I'd designed, the nursery I'd painted, the life I'd thought was mine, but I'd kept what mattered: my son, my skills, my stubborn refusal to disappear on anyone's terms but my own. The radiator clanged its midnight song. Snow gathered on the window ledge. And in that tiny studio, with boxes for furniture and hope for heat, I finally felt like I could breathe. The work saved me. Every line I drew was a small rebellion. Every completed project a brick in the wall between my old life and new. The coffee shop design led to a boutique hotel lobby, which led to a feature in Boston Design Quarterly. "Single mother architect builds dreams from ruins," the headline read. Chloe had orchestrated the interview, knowing visibility was protection. Ethan couldn't claim abandonment when my face was in newsstands across the city. We lived simply: formula and ramen, secondhand clothes, and dollar store toys. But my son thrived, rolling over on our makeshift foam mat, laughing at the radiator's complaints. I worked while he slept, designing spaces for people who'd never know their architect lived in a studio with a broken lock. The call came on a Tuesday. Chloe's voice was strange, careful. "Have you seen the news?" I hadn't. Between feedings and deadlines, the outside world had shrunk to the distance between our studio and the corner bodega. "Ethan's been fired. Something about misappropriated funds, a development deal gone wrong. Sienna's involved. The Globe's running a piece tomorrow." I set down my pencil, hand steady. "And?" "She left him. Posted about it, actually. Called him a sinking ship and tagged her new boyfriend." The baby gurgled from his high chair, reaching for the spoon I'd forgotten I was holding. I fed him another bite of mashed carrots, orange smearing across his chin. "Natalie, you there?" "I'm here." I wiped my son's face, kissed his forehead. It doesn't matter anymore. But it did matter, in a way. Not because I wanted revenge. I'd stopped wanting that somewhere between the third sleepless night and the first completed project. It mattered because it confirmed what I'd learned in that hospital room. People who betray you once will betray anyone, eventually. A week later, a package arrived. Inside was a wooden toy, handmade, expensive, the kind of thing Ethan would buy to show he cared without actually caring. No note, but I recognized his assistant's handwriting on the label. I donated it to the women's shelter down the street, along with the last of my designer clothes. They needed them more than I needed the memories. That night, I showed my son the published article about my work. He grabbed at the glossy pages, leaving tiny fingerprints on my photographed smile. "That's Mama," I told him. "She builds things now, strong things that last." Spring arrived like forgiveness, melting the snow and revealing what had been buried beneath. My son took his first steps in the public garden, stumbling between the swan boats while I hovered, ready to catch him. The architecture symposium was Chloe's idea. "Network," she'd insisted. "Show them who you've become." I almost didn't see him. Ethan had aged years and months, gray threading through his hair, his designer suit replaced by off-the-rack navy. He stood by the registration table, scanning the crowd like a man looking for rescue. My son tugged at my hand. "Mommy, who's that man?" The question sliced deeper than any knife. This stranger was his father, but how could I explain abandonment to someone who'd only known love? "Nobody, sweetheart. Let's find our seats." But Ethan had seen us. He crossed the marble floor, each step echoing in the grand hall. Natalie, his voice broke on my name. Please, can we talk? I picked up my son, holding him close. We have nothing to discuss. I made mistakes. Mistakes? I laughed, sharp and brittle. You left us in a hospital room. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. He dropped to his knees, right there in the crowded lobby. Conversation stopped. Phones appeared, ready to capture the drama. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I lost everything. My job, my reputation, her, and I realized... Stop. I stepped back. You're a chapter I've closed. Don't make me reopen it. Please, let me know him. Let me try. You had your chance. The day he was born, you had every chance. Security approached, drawn by the scene. I walked away, my son's head on my shoulder, his small hand patting my back as if he knew I needed comfort. Mama sad? He asked. No, baby, Mama's free. Behind us, I heard Chloe's voice, sharp with legal authority, handling whatever scene Ethan was creating, but I didn't look back. I'd learned that freedom wasn't just leaving. It was choosing not to return, no matter how much the past cried out for revision. That night, I told my son a story about a phoenix who built the most beautiful nests. He fell asleep smiling, unaware that he was the reason she'd learned to fly again. The letter arrived on a Wednesday, mixed in with invoices and design magazines. Official letterhead, law firm logo, the weight of legal consequence. Ethan had died. Sudden cardiac arrest at 38, alone in a rental apartment in Brookline. He'd left everything to our son, what little remained after the lawsuits and settlements. I sat at my drafting table, the letter spreading ripples through coffee gone cold. My son played with blocks nearby, building towers and knocking them down, rebuilding higher each time. The lawyer called an hour later. There's roughly 100,000, some investments. You'd manage it until he's 18. No? I'm sorry? Donate it. Scholarships for single mothers, maybe, but we don't need it. Mrs. Ward, Grant. My name is Natalie Grant. I'd taken back my maiden name the day the divorce finalized, reclaiming the person I'd been before I'd disappeared into someone else's life. After hanging up, I watched my son play. He'd inherited Ethan's eyes, but nothing else. Not his coldness, not his casual cruelty. Those were learned things, and he'd learned different lessons. Mama, look! He'd built something new, abstract but sturdy. It's our house! Our house. Not the Beacon Hill brownstone with its imported floors and perfect proportions, but the 2-bedroom apartment we'd moved into last month. I'd designed the building myself. Affordable housing with dignity, spaces that nurtured instead of just sheltered. My company, brick by brick, had more projects than I could handle. Each design carried something I'd learned in that studio in Southie. That beauty could exist without excess. That strength came from surviving the demolition. That evening, we stood on our small balcony, watching Boston's skyline catch fire with sunset. My son pointed at the tallest buildings, making up stories about who lived there. Dragons, he decided. Or maybe birds. Maybe both, I agreed, pulling him close. The city spread before us, full of promise and possibility. Somewhere in those glittering towers was the life I'd thought I wanted, the one that had shattered like ice in spring. But here, in this modest apartment with its creaky floors and magnificent view, was the life I'd built from the rubble. We didn't need revenge, I whispered to the wind. We needed freedom. And we'd found it, one brick at a time.
Life will break you in ways you never expect, but it will also give you the strength to rebuild. When someone walks out, don't waste your energy chasing them. Invest it in creating a life so strong, so beautiful, that their absence becomes irrelevant. Your comeback is your best revenge.